Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today an art journal tutorial, and I'm beginning with the end in mind. I have a very clear idea of where I want this page to go. And it all started with these floral pictures that I had in my stash that I just rediscovered when I was reorganizing. And I quickly cut this out, and that is going to be the base of the focal image that I'm going to use. Now, with that, I wanted to add a little bit more interest, and I found this cute printable, this little girl's head. I cut it apart from what was there, and I sized it, and I think I'm going to have her peeking out of the flowers. At least that's my idea. And then I want to have some texture in the top left and in the bottom right. Like I said, I have a pretty clear idea of where I want this to end up. And sometimes that makes it easier to do, but that's not always the case. Sometimes I start with the background and then I go searching for focal images. Now, if you have a magazine picture or a picture that has stuff on it that you do not want, don't worry. All you need is some gesso. I'm going to gesso over this, and I'm going to paint over it, and what we don't want ceases to be. While I was doing that, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if the basket that these florals are in had some texture? So I grabbed this Tile Mania stencil, and I'm just masking off the flowers because I don't want any of this texture to get on here. And I'm going to add texture so it looks like a basket. And instead of modeling paste, I am using thick gesso. It gives texture and interest, but not quite as much bulk as modeling paste. So I'm putting it through the stencil with my finger, and then this has to dry completely. I also cleaned the gesso off of my stencil. This is really important. Acrylic paint, not so much, but gesso. So I said I wanted to put texture top left, bottom right, and I'm going to use this Art Deco Leaves stencil, again from the Crafters Workshop. This is, all the stencils I use today are amongst my favorites. I get a lot of use out of them for a variety of different pages. And again, I'm putting the thick gesso through the stencil onto the page. This is going to add some subtle patterning. It's going to add texture and interest to a page. And I'm trying to not put the the thick gesso where my focal image is going to go. And then I'm just adding a little bit more to build it up. Auditioning where I want everything to go. Which is easy when you have a picture in your head. Now I want to colorize this girl, but before I do that, I'm going to give her a coat of clear gesso. This is from the Crafters Workshop. And what this is going to do is add bulk to the paper and prepare the paper to take any wet medium. This is just simply copy paper. Once that's dry, I'm coming in and I've got some gesso, white gesso, and yellow oxide paint, and I am painting the hair of the girl. And I'm going with this color because there's that yellow flower in the pot, and I want to bring that out. I'm also careful not to cover up those lines. I want to use the lines that are in her hair to shade later on down the road. I switch up to a thinner brush to get into the fine areas, and the rest of the time I use an angle brush because I find that that helps me get into areas when I'm painting the printables. Now I'm just mixing some orange, some quinacridone magenta, a little bit of the yellow and some white gesso to get a flesh color. Just test as you go. When you're happy with the flesh tone that you have, paint it on. And again, I'm avoiding her eyes. I don't want to block that out. I want those details. I just think this is going to be so super cute. I'm really quite happy with how this page ended up. But now I want the background color, and I am using the colors that are in that floral. Quinacridone magenta, dioxazine purple, and Prussian blue. And I'm putting it on with a little bit of white gesso onto the page, going over the textured areas. Now this page was gessoed before I started. And that's just helping me blend the paints quicker. Where I put the floral picture, I don't need to put paint, but I do need to make sure that it goes right to the edge of the picture. That's why you see me moving the picture back and forth. You can see how the texture part comes out, and that dark background really is making that floral stand out. And I just keep tweaking till the background is exactly as I like. The different tones, the different blends of color just adds interest to the page. To add more interest, I grab this onion blossom stencil, and I'm using white acrylic paint, and I'm just stenciling through it. This is adding that floral motif to the background. It's also serving to lighten my background and tie in the white that is in the floral. Now I want to add some small patterning, and I grab my script stamp. I cannot function without it. And I'm using the Prussian blue. So I added the white with the stenciling, and now I'm adding the Prussian blue. It's a subtle addition, but it really makes the difference, and it pushes back some of that white. Hopefully you'll see the script in the close-ups at the end of the video. Thank you if you are a subscriber to my channel. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and then click on the bell and select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. Background complete, it's time to glue down my focal image, and I'm using gel medium primarily because that floral, that's on rather thick paper, and I find gel medium works better. The yellow on the hair works really well with the dark background, the purple and blue background, because they are opposite each other on the color wheel. Using the matte medium gives a nice matte finish, gets rid of any shine that a magazine picture has. I grabbed a sentiment from my Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack, and I used part of it. This is only half the quote, and it just says, "Be like a flower." After a little bit of playing around, I finally decide where I want it, and I just glue it down as well. Now, while I knew where this page was going to go, I don't always, and don't think you need to do that all the time either. Sometimes we just do a background and the focal image comes later. I add that yellow oxide to the basket, and you can see how it brings out the texture, but wait, I'll be adding more, making it stand out more. Now I'm shading those lines in the hair, I'm just using them as guidelines, and I'm shading with brown and my angle brush. A lot of this I didn't catch on camera because it takes a long time. But no, every one of those lines, I go in and I shade it with the angle brush. You'll see in the close-ups. Then I'm going to shade on the basket as well. Cutting off excess. And just rubbing some of that brown. I really like how that Tile Mania stencil made it look like a basket. I'm going to have to remember that for future pages. Now I'm taking some black acrylic paint and I'm shading. I'm shading on the florals. I'll be shading on the outside of the girl and the florals. Adding all those finishing touches. This shading is going to make the focal image stand out from the background. And the background is very similar to a lot of those florals. And the shading will make it so that it really pops. I am beyond thrilled with how this page evolved. Now I'm shading or edging around the page to frame it. Then I realized I hadn't colored the flowers. I could have left them white, but I start painting them the quinacridone magenta, which is a very translucent color, so I have to add a couple layers to build up the color. Drawing in between. I colored the center dark. Not sure I'm liking it, but you know what? Just keep going. Then I take my black Posca pen and add the lines back in that got covered with paint. I'm outlining the flowers, and I'm going to go over all the lines in the hair as well. More of a sketchy look. Adding white dots to the middle of the flower made me happy, and white to the eyes. And I'm outlining the sentiment. Turning the page to make it easy to do. Adding the line work, I think, made the focal image stand out a little bit more. Then I'm just doing a wash of color over top of all the flowers with my quinacridone magenta, the Prussian blue, and the dioxazine purple and white gesso. Just brightening up the colors a little bit, just again to make the focal image stand out a little more from the background. I also go over the yellow with the yellow oxide. And then I choose to splatter with gold. That's adding some of that yellow to the background and unifies the whole page. There are links and coupon codes in the description box if you're interested. And I thought I was done the page, and then I decided, you know, I'm going to add this embellishment. This dragonfly was from a TCW stencil, and I put modeling paste through the stencil onto the white ply of the napkin. The white will disappear when I glue it down, and you'll see whatever's underneath, and the modeling paste will add texture. I just thought I'd add a dragonfly to her hair. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you go and have a creative day. Until next time, go get creative.